It is no secret that I love vintage and antique hand knits, and while you may have watched me hand knit and machine knit plenty of vintage and antique sweaters, you may not realize the extent of my vintage sweater pattern collection, and I don't think I've ever taken a time to speak through some of my more recent acquisitions. I've divided the sweaters that I want to talk about into a few different categories, so let's start with the first category, which I will call Scandinavian knits or vintage ski knits. We will start with the one that I am wearing, which is obviously one of my favorites. I feel like I have to stop saying that because the reason I got all these sweaters is because they are my favorites and vintage knits are my favorites. So is it possible to have all of the sweaters that you own be your favorites? I'm not sure. Let me just stop saying that because otherwise I will just literally say it for each and every one. Off to these Scandinavian knit sweaters. If you watched my entire Craftmas series, then you'll be very familiar with this sweater because I ended up making a pattern and copying it exactly for my own vintage skiing ensemble. I really like that this has a turtleneck up at the top, and it's interesting that the color work continues from the front section of the sweater over to the arms. It is knit in sections, so you do have to pay careful attention to the design to make sure that works out. The front has neck shaping going on right here at the turtleneck, as I am showing you a little bit, and overall it is just a very warm and comfy, slightly oversized sweater. Perfect to wear outside on those cold days or even inside when I don't really feel like turning on the heat. These next two sweaters don't quite fit me, so they are big candidates for me to make copies of, but in my size, I fell in love with this one. I just love the colors, the style, the details. There's so many details about this, and every time I look at it, I just love it more and more. So this is a typical Norwegian style pattern that's called a lusekofte, where you have those little polka dots. Look at the collar. It has a picot edge and color work in the collar. I've never seen that before, and I could just stare at it forever. I love it. The colors chosen for the yoke are also some of my favorites. That red and white almost looks like mushrooms to me somehow. I really like it, and you can see a little bit here. I'm showing you the inside of the sweater so you can see how they manage the long floats on the other side. I'm pretty impressed because it's quite a dark color in contrast to that light sweater in the background, but you don't notice that float management too much when you view it on the right side, as you see now. It's also not the black. The darkest color almost looks black, especially on video, but in person it's like a very, very deep olive green. Again, just the color selection, the style, the picot edge at the top, the color work in the collar, that moss stitch for the borders along the button bands and the bottoms, the style of buttons, just everything about this sweater I love. So this is a very strong candidate for me to redo. Another Norwegian knit is the third sweater of this series. Again, it doesn't quite fit me, which is why I can't button it up all the way. Another one that maybe I will make not an exact copy of, but one in this style. So it's made in the very traditional Norwegian sweater style, as far as I can tell, where it is knit in the round from the bottom up completely as one tube. And then in order to set the sleeves into the armholes and cut open that slit in the front, it's steeked, so it's fully cut, which is why you have kind of these knit trims on the edges to hold your steeking in place so your whole knitting doesn't unravel. But it is the very traditional way of making these Norwegian sweaters, so I kind of think that's cool. This doesn't seem hand knit to me. I think it's more likely that it's machine knit, but it's still an absolutely beautiful sweater that I wish I could wear more often, and I would if it would fit me better. You can see the management of the floats inside is just absolutely stunning and makes me once again think that this is more likely machine knit rather than hand knit. The closures are also really fun. Rather than being buttons, it's these clasps, almost like a hook and eye, but much more decorative and fancy. So I really enjoy the look of that, and they work really well, and it helps again because it doesn't fit me quite well, so it kind of bridges that gap a little bit. The second category is by far the largest, as you can see, and I have broadly grouped this under the mohair sweater pattern because they are all knit with mohair yarn, but they also kind of have a similarity beyond just the mohair. Let's go try them on, and I will give you some more information that I can find about these and some details that I notice about these particular mohair sweaters that I think are really interesting and kind of a common thread that ties them together, beyond just the mohair, of course. The first one we're going to look at is the only one in my collection that is a sweater and not a cardigan. You can see that it is a beautiful, like, juicy red color, just my absolute favorite. It's hard, I think the camera does some color correction, so you don't see the full depth of the color here, but think more towards the berry purpley red than an orange red. It's just gorgeous. When I come close up, you can see that the neckline is a really interesting, I think, is it called like a boat neck? I don't remember the exact terminology, but it's knit flat and then kind of folded over, and there's no difference in the front and back of this sweater. So it's the same front and back. You can't really wear it the wrong way around, which is kind of nice. You have a lot of cabling details, so not only the cables in the front and back, but you have one long cable that runs down each side of the arms. There's not a lot of extra volume in the sleeve heads or anything. It's pretty straight cut, so that makes me think that this is closer to the late 50s, but likely in the 60s. I have a lot of pattern books from the 1960s that have a ton of these mohair patterned cardigans and sweaters. This one, I don't know why I don't wear it more often. I really enjoy it. This next one you've seen me wear a lot in some of my videos. I do wear this one quite often. It's a baby blue mohair cardigan, kind of an interesting collar detail. I think that's one of the things that sticks out about some of these cardigans is the collars are very interesting. What pulls in from the last one is the cabling detail. You have two large cables going down the front and a cable coming around the side of the collar. So the collar isn't knit from the neckline outwards, it's actually knit from one shoulder to the other. So it comes from one shoulder and it's knit all the way around to the other shoulder, so it's knit left to right or right to left, and then it's sewn in place. I'm trying to find the seam to show that to you a little bit more clearly here, but it's hard to when I only have two hands and a camera that has a mind of its own with terms of focus, so sorry that's not super clear. The other detail that I really like on this cardigan are the buttons. They're these silver buttons with details in the center in a heart shape. They kind of make me think of Lebkuchenherz. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of that, but they're very popular in the Christmas markets in Germany, so that's what I always think of when I see this one. This one still retains a lot of its original fuzziness from the mohair. Some of the other sweaters, they kind of, I wouldn't call them felted, but the fuzziness of the mohair isn't quite as apparent as it is on this one, and I really like that detail. So once again, you can also see that, like the last sweater, we have cables going down both arms and two large cables going down the front of this one. Another thing I really like about this cardigan is that whoever made it put a lot of effort and attention into the finishings. So these buttonholes are actually machine-made buttonholes, and to steady the fabric in order to do that, they added this satin ribbon lining to stabilize the button bands. The buttons are sewn in by hand, and that ribbon to stabilize those button bands are also sewn by hand, and we see that who it was made by, someone named Lillian Runyon, specially handmade and fashioned by. And in some of my knitting magazines from the 50s and 60s, there are special advertisements where you can order these personalized tags to be made for you to have them in your hand knits so that it can always be remembered who made them, and I'm really glad that I have a name to put to this particular cardigan. This last mohair cardigan is really cute, but I would personally wear it a little bit more often if it weren't this particular shade of orange. Some of you out there might be saying, oh my gosh, this is so cute, I love the color, but it's personally not one that I reach for often, but it's just the shape of it and the style of it. So again, mohair cardigan, and we have an interesting collar to go along it, but there's something slightly different about this construction in that it is a raglan cardigan rather than what is the typical, it's not drop shoulder, but it's not this style of construction. So this is raglan as compared to the other ones were not raglan. They were kind of straight shoulders with set-in sleeves. The collar on this is also, I love the collar on this one. That interesting collar, I just find it so wonderful how they made it. You can see at the bottom that they edged it with 2 rows of crochet to kind of stabilize that collar, and I think it's important that they did that because the collar has this really cute point at the back. I don't know, there's just something about it. It's not that like in your face, it's not that wide like the baby blue one, but it's just that extra bit of interest that looks so darn cute. Yeah, this cardigan is another high contender for me to remake it in maybe a color that I would reach for more frequently. And you can see here again, I'm just showing that the way that it was knit is usually knit separately and then sewn in place with some of that shaping to make that pointed bit. Yeah, this is Wonderful. Love this cardigan. While this one doesn't have the same finishing touches as the last one with the satin ribbons and everything, this button is special because it is handmade from the exact same yarn as the rest of the cardigan. So there's like a plastic ring in the middle that whoever made this cardigan ended up putting the yarn through and over many, many times before sewing it into place. So you have matching buttons to the cardigan. I love this idea, and I think it's a really nice way to trim the cardigan, and I think it adds like a wonderful texture interest, again, without pulling so much attention to it. So it's like interesting, but not distracting. It's really cool. Oh, and how could I forget the last one? Wasn't the last cardigan. This is the last Mohair cardigan in this beautiful off-white. Another one with the raglan sleeve construction and some cabling, but also baubles to go along with it. It's also a much longer line in the body than a lot of the other ones, so it comes down much further on my hips. I personally prefer them to be a little bit shorter because they bunch up on me. I have quite wide hips in comparison to my waist and bust, so I like to wear cardigans that end a little bit higher personally so they don't bunch up. This one also doesn't have like a statement collar like some of the other two cardigans that we saw, but I think the interest really is in the baubles or the little knobs that are happening. I forget the exact popcorn bits in the knitting. Sorry, I forgot the term. But again, this is a raglan sleeve and is so soft. I love the mohair. The mohair is a really, really soft to wear. Very lovely. However, it is in maybe worse condition than my other two cardigans. While none of the stitches on the body are unraveling, they are unstable, and you can see that the seaming is starting to come undone. We have it undone on one underarm and we're starting on the other arm already. So this is probably the last time I'm going to wear this cardigan. If I wear it again, I really want to stabilize it first, but it is still a really cute reference bit, and so many of these I want to remake. I don't know, what do you all think? I think it'd be fun to do like a collection of mohair sweaters. So like one pattern, and you can do like raglan or set-in sleeves, statement collar or shorter collar, cabling or no cables, just kind of like a mix and match to make your own vintage inspired mohair cardigan. Let me know what you think. That's just an idea that came to mind. This pattern category I am generally calling chunkier sweaters, but they're not ski sweaters, so they're kind of chunky like this one I'm wearing, but they don't have that colorwork design on them. They're also very fun colors, and I think one is closer to the 1960s, while this one leans more 1980s to me, but I always get a ton of comments when I wear this one. I haven't worn this one yet, so I think it'll be interesting to put these on and kind of chat about what I see when I look at these a little bit closer. You've never seen this sweater before because, well, I've never worn it before. As you can see, I am struggling quite a bit with getting this zipper done up at the back of the turtleneck. I assume it's worn at the back. Maybe it's worn at the front. I'm not 100% sure, but it was not easy to get it on. I do love the structure of this sweater though. Once again, it's that orange color that I don't really gravitate towards personally, but I do think that the stitches are interesting. I have another vintage sweater that I think the stitch style is very, very similar to, and the construction of the sweater is really cool. I could see this being like worn in the 1960s on the ski slopes, and honestly, you know, if you ever got caught in an avalanche, this nice bright orange color would probably be the best in terms of finding you to rescue you. You would definitely stand out from the rest of the snow around you. But yeah, this is about the same weight of yarn, I would say, as the first ski sweater that I showed you. So it really feels like a very nice, sturdy and structured winter knit with raglan style shaping at the top. And I don't know, I love the lines. It's like a very clean cut sweater that looks really good, is pretty simple, but just looks very nice. I've worn this sweater quite a few times on this channel, and every time I do, I get comments on it. This one, like I said before, I think is more 1970s or 80s, kind of does that cottagecore Victorian look, because you have those poofy sleeves and you have the high neck collar. I tend not to wear the collar closed because I feel a little bit constricted, even though the knitting is quite stretchy. I just prefer to wear it a little bit open, but there's so many details on this that I really like. The ribbing at the top with a little bit of contrast of that moss stitch through the rest of the sleeves and the body. You have the one cable coming down the front. There's just so much going on with this sweater, but I think that all the details pull together very nicely. So this is another one that I was actually considering making a pattern for. Can you tell? I feel like I want to make a pattern and copy all of these sweaters. So you let me know which one you would rather me do first. Like, what would you be most interested in? Oh yes, and here I'm showing, I think this sweater is supposed to be worn with the sleeves long like this, where you get a little bit of that bishop sleeve going on, but I have really long arms. I don't know if it ever shows up on video, but I'm quite tall, so some of these things tend to not fit me, especially in my arms, because I am tall and have long arms. And same with the torso. I do have a long torso, so sometimes I have some fit issues there. But yeah, another one of my favorites that I do wear quite frequently. These next three sweaters I'm putting in the category of maybe something special. So one of them is actually not hand knit. This one I'm not putting on because it's not in good enough condition to wear. And this one just has a unique way of putting it on and closing it. So they each are unique in their own ways, not in the same way, but when I put them on and I show them to you, hopefully you can see what I mean by something special about each of them. This is the only sweater in my collection that I'm going to be going over that is not hand knit, but it is pretty special, so I thought I would go over it. It's also even got the name special on it, so that's kind of fun. But this is a sweater that is a menswear sweater, so it is quite large on me. It's a bright, bright red, which I love, and it is so soft, so ridiculously soft. And the reason for that is it is actually a synthetic. It is the first synthetic. So DuPont created the first acrylic fibers in 1941 and trademarked them under the name Orlon. And can you guess what this sweater is made out of? That's right, it's made out of the Orlon fibers. So I felt compelled when I saw this in a thrift store to pick it up so that I could own some of the kind of history of these acrylic fibers. I don't love acrylics nowadays. It's not what I reach for. I tend to reach more for natural fibers, but feeling this one, I don't know, maybe it's just in my mind, but it does feel quite a lot softer than today's acrylic fibers. It's just very, very soft and smooth against the skin. And after wearing all of the other previous sweaters that are 100% wool, but not the softest wool, so they are a bit itchy, I can see why the acrylic fibers got so popular. This green sweater is really interesting because it is kind of constructed like a cardigan, but it's a wraparound cardigan, and I have just so many questions about the design of this and who made it and who knit it and for what reason. So as you can see, the fronts kind of overlap, so you have these two snaps that snap in place, one at the bottom and one directly under the underarm, and then the right comes over to the left front to button at my left side with these wooden buttons in a row, which is really cute, but it overlaps to create like one cohesive sweater look with a wraparound front. Now there could be many reasons for this. I mean, I think it looks super cute, so it might just be for the aesthetics of it, or maybe you want something warmer in the front. I have 2 layers covering the front of my body right now, so I am quite warm on the front versus the back. The sleeves are also pretty loose, especially compared to what the size is in the body. And another thing that I was thinking of is maybe this is made for someone who can't pull sweaters over their head, or someone who maybe can't really get up that easily, so it's easier to dress them seated. Maybe they're in bed a lot, and so it's easier for them to kind of lean forward and put a sweater on in this way. I'm just pointing out here that the cardigan is trimmed with crochet edging. Again, very, very common features. A lot of crocheted edgings happen. So is it just for style? Is it for functionality? Is it a combination of both? I just find this particular sweater super fascinating. I've never found a vintage pattern that is like this. If you have, please let me know. And I would love to learn more about this one. I think it's absolutely fascinating, super cute, love the color. If I could find yarn in this color, I would snap it up immediately. And again, very functional and easy to wear, but also looks great when you wear it. As I said before, this one I am not going to be putting on my body. I can hold it up to show you, but I don't want to put any stress or strain on any of the stitches because this is not in good enough condition. You might not see it from here, but I'll show you some close-ups a little bit later as to why this is not structurally sound enough for me to put on. But this is one of my most coveted acquisitions. It's an original Fair Isle knit vest in the colors that just are, they're so classic, like absolutely classic. The Fair Isle knit vest has a lot of interesting history, became really, really popular after a royal was, I think, painted wearing one. So it became kind of like a really big fashion statement to wear one. I, again, want to recreate this vest because I can't wear it. Look at the size of those holes. And that's not the only one. There's many like that and many stitches that are about to go. So the moment that I put any strain on that vest, it's going to start unraveling. So it's just for looking at. And because of its poor condition, I actually got it for under $10, which is just unheard of. I'm so happy with this one anyway, even if I can't wear it, because I want to use it as the basis to recreate it. So I want to not only recreate the initial vest pattern, but I was thinking about making an entire set. So you can have like a vest, a sweater, and a matching cardigan, just to have like an entire matching set that you can mix and match depending on what you feel like wearing, because I think it's so pretty. All right, that was the last one. What do you think about all of my vintage knit sweaters? So that has been my entire squishy stack of vintage sweaters I decided to go through this time. I own a few more than the ones that I've shown you. Decided not to show them either because I've previously shown them at length, or they are not here. They're at my parents' place, so I can't share them with you at the moment. Let me know if you enjoyed watching this. I continually keep my eye out for vintage and antique sweaters, either at thrift stores, online. Oh, and also let me know which sweater of the ones that I've shown you would potentially be interested in another pattern for. I have really enjoyed writing my first vintage sweater pattern in modern terms and sizing, and I think it'd be really fun to make more of those, to make more of these sweaters accessible to the current modern day knitter. Thank you so much for watching, and feel free to subscribe if you liked it and you want to see more like this, and I will see you all again very, very soon. Bye!